Leader, it's been a while. First of all, welcome to the Express Online Zoom sessions. It's been forever since I had you on the sessions. Have you been good?
Thanks for having me. Yeah, so far it's been good. I can't complain, except obviously the COVID situation that we find ourselves in. But I'm good.
Yeah, I'm also well, surviving COVID. But now my issue that COVID is doing is that it is disrupting everything. I mean, we spoke about this a while back, me and you on radio a while back, and now I am seeing all the disruptions that you wrote about in your first book, The Startup Revolution, Fit In or Stand Out, and the disruption is real. Your thoughts about that?
Yeah, I when I wrote the book about 5-6 years ago, I was talking about more in line with the disruption that technology is bringing, and how we needed to move, and I spoke about that it's a revolution, but it's a silent one. And this was like over 6 years ago. Nobody thought that we'll find ourselves in a situation where we are 6 years later. But what COVID has done, because as I was talking about the revolution back then, and I was saying this is a coming revolution, and we need to, you either fit in or stand out. So what COVID has actually done is it has accelerated the revolution, so to speak. Things that people were telling themselves that, you know what, we see this thing, we hear what you're saying, we will change and we'll adapt later in 2 years' time or 3 years' time, there was no sense of agency to adapt. But what COVID has then done is it has forced us to move at a very rapid pace.
True.
And embrace technology to a point where if it was not because of the pandemic, we would still be procrastinating the adoption. Right now, you and I are having this conversation via Zoom. A lot of people did not even know Zoom before COVID. A lot of people did not even think that they will have classes and meetings and conferences exclusively from Zoom. But because of this disruption that we find ourselves in, we were forced to move at a very rapid pace. And if you didn't, COVID is really forcing you to now.
It is, It is forcing us. Now, with all this, force that is happening, where now people are being forced to do things online, a lot of people lost their jobs. And we have seen this from the report coming from Stats SA, reporting that unemployment is increasing at a rapid pace, right? Now, let's go Kasi, Roche. Let's go to our hoods. Let's talk economy, Kasi. When we talk about Kasi economy, most of us don't even know, or maybe the Katamat, or actually things that are happening locally. Mokasi is an economy. To simplify it, when you're talking about Kasi economy, what are we talking about?
Before I even answer that question, I think let's bring what this COVID has done to. Let's tie what COVID has done to what government was supposed to have done to then answering your question, what Kasi economy is. I think one of the things, when we talk about service delivery, there was never a sense of agency especially in our country, when you look at the number of service protests that we have been experiencing prior to COVID, there's always been an outcry. You talk about people having lost their jobs. There's always unemployment has always been a problem in our country. It has always been high. It has always been an anomaly. The issue of hospital infrastructure, building hospitals, the issue of building proper schools, the issue of building building proper toilets and moving away from long drop latrines. These issues have been there before COVID, and there's been that lack of urgency to solve these issues, so to speak. What now COVID has done is, if we had solved these issues back then, there's a high likelihood that we wouldn't be experiencing issues that we're experiencing today. I'll give you an example. When COVID started in it started in 2019, but we then started going into hard lockdown in March 2020. One of the things when people talk about hard lockdowns is things like social distancing. How do you social distance in a formed house, or how do you social distance where the majority of people are living in informal settlements? We all sharing a shack, 3 of us, 4 of us. How do you social distance from there? How do you social distance from a class of students who are 60 in a student, because we did not build enough schools? And then you then come and say, in a classroom of 60 students, we now need to social distance. How is that possible? It's not possible.
It's not.
How do you social distance when we need more hospitals, and those hospitals have not been built? And now what COVID is doing is it's giving us that urgency to say, guys, we should have built these infrastructures a long time ago. And because we didn't have that sense of urgency, we are sitting with a pandemic now that is forcing us to rely on the infrastructure that we could have built, but we didn't, right?
Yeah.
So the issue of unemployment, let's say released their numbers a day or two ago, and the numbers are shocking. But the fact of the matter is, the numbers have been shocking for a very long time. They've always been high before COVID. What COVID is doing is it's showing us that things that we should have mastered and built before COVID, right? We are now living to regret those moments, because now things are at the extreme level, right? So talking about gas economies and building gas economies now, right? It's a bit late. We should have built these economies before COVID, so that by the time COVID comes, we have built resilient infrastructures, resilient economies. If you look at Australia, for instance, right? They had one case a couple of days ago. They had one case, and what did they do? They put the whole country under lockdown, right? How do you manage to do that? You can do that because you have got an economy that's self-sufficient. You can do that because you have an economy that is able to provide for people. So if Vince gets one case of COVID, they put you into a sheltered space in the expense of the government, and they even give you an allowance because you could have been making a living, elsewhere. But because of COVID, they put you in a shelter paid for by the government, and they even give you an allowance. How is that possible? Because the Australian economy has been running and the proper infrastructures have been built, right, before COVID. By the time you experience COVID, you've got, checks and balances and a safety net that you can fall on. We did not do that. And as a result, we are now at the extreme. We can't afford to even close the economy because a lot of people are going to lose their livelihood because we did not build an economy that is resilient. Now, tying it into what gas economies are, a literal definition would be, economies that are operating in what was classified, as townships by the Group Areas Act. It's those type of economies. It can be informal economies, like informal economies in the sense of You have bomme who are selling on the streets, selling apples, vegetables. It can be to a semi-formal business where the guy has got an infrastructure, a building.
Okay.
Yes, Vince, I'm here.
No, I was saying I lost you a bit there, but I think we have your gist in terms of what you're talking about, your funeral palace, what
Yes.
the shop. I mean, now we can also include the shop with our foreign brothers who came from their countries. That is the economy that we're talking about. But now there has been a lot of noise, Rush. I don't know if to call it noise or what, but there's been a lot of talk about taking back the spaza shops. Do you see that happening, or we are just making noise about it?
Vince, I think the issue really is not taking them back as an issue. I think for me, what we need to understand is what makes these spaza shops to work.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And learning from that. Right. It's not necessarily taking them back. You can take them back, but if you have not learned what makes them work, you are not going to put sustainable spaza shops there. Right.
True.
So let me be a bit controversial here, Evans, for the first time on your show. You have a situation where, for instance, recently you have the governing party, the ANC, being unable to pay salaries.
Oh yeah,
for 3 months.
For 3 months. Shocking. Yeah. Shocking.
So you have that as a situation, right? And it's a serious issue if the governing party is unable to manage their own affairs. But let's put that aside. Let's look at, for instance, what AfriForum and Solidarity are doing, right? They built a school. I don't know if you know about that. They built a technical college, Soltech, in Centurion. How did they manage to do that? So when you go deeper into what they did is every person who's a member of, I think it's Solidarity, who's a member of, they contribute about $30, whatever, every month from their salaries, right? So you have members of Solidarity contributing $30, but of course you might have others who are contributing more because they're earning more. And so you have that. And as a result, they're able to run their offices, they're able to even build a technical college. And I'm told that this is not the last one they're going to build up. So that's a model that works. Now you have a governing party that's responsible for getting people to get into positions of being ministers, right? Yeah. Of being deputy ministers. You have a governing party that's responsible for getting their members to be in parliament, and they're the majority in parliament. You have a ruling party that is responsible for getting people to be mayors all over the country, to be councillors all over the country, to be ambassadors in other countries. This is a governing party that's able to get their members to hold CEO positions in parastatals, to be on boards, for instance, on boards of companies, right? Now, what is it that's stopping the governing party to adopt the same model that AfriForum and Solidarity has adopted?
Ego.
Which says,
pride.
If you are a minister, right, from your salary, you contribute 1,000 to the governing party. If you are a member of parliament, from your salary, you contribute 1,000. If you are a mayor, from your salary, you contribute 750. If you are an ordinary councillor, you pay 100 rand or whatever, right? And remember, this is a governing party that has got, municipalities, thousands of municipalities in the country, that has got ministers, that has got. Now, are you saying to me, through that type of a business model, that the governing party will be unable to raise enough money to pay for the rent of the house, to pay for salaries to the employees? I doubt. if you say to the president, you are the president of the country because of this party, from your salary, pay a certain amount into the NC. The deputy president pay. Just those people, Vince, just those people can pay for the rent to the house. They can pay for the salaries of the staff. They can build hospitals. They can build schools. They can build all these other things, right?
Yeah.
And you're not. This model is not a corruptible model. You are not saying people should get tenders, and from those tenders they should pay into the coffers. You are saying you are working, you are earning an honest living. From that honest living, contribute to the organization that put you there. Now, if you look at spaza shops, for instance, and how these Pakistanis and Somalians and other foreign nationals are doing it, it's pretty much the same model. We come together, we contribute together as a group, and as a group, we are able to go and buy stock and get discounts. As a group, we are able to buy delivery vehicles and transport these things to our different sponsor shops. As a group, if something happens, I'm able to get a loan, and I'm able to get a loan at a very reduced rate, and I'm able to pay it back. As a group, we're able to work together and grow together, right? And that model, that's the model that works. And until us as Black people are able to replicate that model as entrepreneurs, because I know we do it as Stokvels and
I wanted to jump in on that.
Yeah, so we need to be able to replicate that in business,
yeah,
right? And be able to say, I know there are Stokvels that are able to club together and buy properties. So we need more of that model in the spaza owner community, right? And that's how we can reclaim the economy, not by physically taking those things off, but by building this model and leveraging from this model. And sometimes it's not even, Vince, it's not even about owning the spaza shops. It might be even about owning the value chain that supplies to the spaza shops. So we actually own the products that these tuck shops are selling, right? Through this type of a model. But if we are going to just want to take the front end, what we see as the front end, and not understand what makes the back end, the engine, right? We'll steal the tuck shops, but we'll not be able to sustain them.
We are still going to collapse them in the future.
Yes.
I'm loving how you tied up with the Stokvel mentality that is taking place in the country. I'm also seeing a lot of banks trying to jump into the Stokvel wagon, because of definitely that is where most of our money is based. But then, as you said, maybe if we can take that same ideology and put it up in business. Now, I wanted to ask you about the individualism vis-a-vis groups that we can create to start this type of model business, because entrepreneurship is one of the loneliest journey. If you do it with someone else next to you, you can definitely be able to break through. I mean, you're talking about transport. There's someone who will have to balance books. Maybe you're not good into that. When you are good in making sure that the product works. How do we make sure that we structure a good format where a person would say, you know what, yes, I'm not good in 1, 2, 3. I need a team that I can work with so that we can, we can all grow.
So I blogged about something similar this morning. About being competitive versus being collaborative, right? So there's two ways of doing things. So you can go out there on an all-out attack. Eat or be eaten attitude, where you just want frontal attack, this Darwinism way of doing things. It's a winner takes all type of an attitude, and you don't want to collaborate with anyone, and you're just gonna go out there and try and see if you can do it all by yourself. Now, that model doesn't really work as human beings. I mean, if you read Yuval Noah Harari, he wrote a book, Sapiens, his first book, Sapiens, A Brief History of Humankind. And in the book, he talks about the fact that humans, unlike animals, what makes us, as animals are getting instinct, we talk about dinosaurs and all these other animals that are getting instinct, right?
Yeah.
Humans managed to survive civilization and not be extinct, partly because of our organizational skills, partly because we're able to collaborate as tribes. We're able to come together. We're able to have a conversation. We're able to come up with an action plan. We're able to say, this is how we're going to defend ourselves against the lions. This is how we're going to defend ourselves against acts of nature, thunder, and all these kind of things. And that's why, fast forward to 200,000 years later, human beings are still here. We survived because we're able to collaborate with one another,
True.
right? That's why we are still here and other animals could not. Now, you won't have baboons, for instance, organizing a conference. Baboons saying, we're going to meet at 8 o'clock in the morning. We're going to have a conference. We're going to discuss. We're going to take resolutions. And this is the action plan that we're going to take from now on. Baboons don't have that organizational ability. They don't have that ability to collaborate, unlike us as human beings. Now, the same goes with business. The same goes with nationalities. If we are all able to collaborate, come together and collaborate and say there is COVID and we all need to be vaccinated, all of us, we go out there and we vaccinate because we are collaborating with one another. There's a high likelihood that by now, as a country, we would have reached herd immunity, or what President calls community immunity. And there's a chance that we would have brought this virus under control. But because people are not collaborative, right? Some people say, let's come together. Some people are pulling on the other side because we are competing against each other, right? We are not going to be able to defeat even the virus because people are pulling in different directions. Now, what I'm getting at, Vince, is, until we adopt an attitude that says we can actually grow, all of us, when we collaborate. In other words, as a startup entrepreneur, I am not going to see other people as my competitors. I'm going to see them as my collaborators, my customers. How do I collaborate with my customers? How do I collaborate with my suppliers? How do I collaborate with government? How do I collaborate with other people my guy on the next door and the guy who's selling the same thing? How can we collaborate? And it's through collaboration that we are going to grow our businesses, and not this competition or competitive mindset that we have, right?
Which
we
is killing us.
Grow. The pie is too big. One of the things that I didn't talk about in the startup revolution is we are living in the age of abundance. What the age of abundance means is we've got the tools that these technologies have afforded to us. And now we can do whatever we want to do. You can start your own podcast. You can have your McGs. You can have everybody, right? We don't have to compete against each other.
No.
We can learn from each other. And we can grow together collectively. But it's a mindset that we need to adopt, of collaborating and not competing with one another. And once we get there, especially as Black folks, once we can get into that mindset of collaborating with one another instead of a winner-takes-all attitude. A winner-takes-all attitude benefits one person at the expense of millions of other people. But a collaborative mindset benefits everyone who's willing to come into the tribe and participate in a collaborative side. So things like your stock fails, your stock fails. So all these group savings things, it's collaboration, right? But the collaboration is something that we all need to embrace in our communities, in our homes, in business. That's the mindset that we need to adopt. And because together as a collaboration group, as a tribe, we are going to achieve far more than if we are individualism. You mentioned ego. For instance, competition is ego, right? But if we collaborate, we're likely to actually go far further as a business community.
Nice, nice. Dr. Rochemamabolo, founder of, co-founder of Laura Center, also co-curator of TEDx Johannesburg, and also TEDx Gaborone.
Yes, yes. Sir.
Okay, TEDx Gaborone, and also author of the Startup Revolution, and another book, Letters to 20. What do you call it? Letters to Entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Letters to Entrepreneurs. Leadership, thank you so much. I believe this is not the last time I'm having you. Definitely, we need such, conversations to take place going forward, where our Black people can, get educated, and, we can start to collaborate for our greater good.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Vince. I think, as a parting shot, how do we build economies? I think what COVID has taught us is, as individuals, we're not going to succeed. Yeah. We need to work together as a collective in everything we do. We need to work together as a individualism should be something that is gone in 2019. Going forward, we need to connect the dots and work together as a group. So on that very note, thank you so much, and continue doing amazing work that matters. Thanks, Vince.
Thank you, leader. We'll talk again.